here today with Jon Hackler, the Democratic candidate for District 27 on the Sangamon County Board. We appreciate you being here and would invite you to start by providing an opening statement about why you're running and why you think you're the best candidate for the seat.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I am Jon Hackler, running for the Democratic, or I'm the Democratic candidate running for County Board in District 27. It's exciting to be a part of this as a first-time candidate. I moved to Springfield over 10 years ago, and it's where I met my wife and where we're choosing to raise our two sons. We love the Springfield area. It's rich in history, always exciting being the seat of state government. We really like the public schools here. A little bit more about me. I'm originally from Southern Illinois, from Olney, Illinois. My father is a retired city police officer of 26 years, and my mother is currently working in her 30th year as a social worker. So I've grown up with a passion for helping others and being able to witness firsthand how local government and local government services can provide for the community when run efficiently. So that's what I want to see more of in the Springfield area and in Sangamon County. We have a number of issues facing us, from economic development to the drug and opioid dependencies, and then proper funding for our schools. And so I think with the right people in place and asking the right questions and illustrating all issues, or illustrating all angles of the issues, that we can move forward and see real progress in Sangamon County.
So I've got a couple of things to kind of more broadly. The first one may be easier. So where's District 27?
District 27 is on the west, I guess you could call it west central part of the community. Salem Estates, Old Bradfordton Place, there west of Bradfordton Road, west on Washington, so Capitol 66, 61, kind of the SHG Dominican Sisters area, south of Washington Street, but north of Monroe. It's kind of a wedge-shaped district.
Oh, okay, okay. And then more broadly, though, so how'd you get to be a Democrat?
I would say I've been a Democrat all my life, just with the way that my parents raised me. I think the first instance where I remember coming into close contact with cultural or social issues was as a, 5, maybe 6 years old, weekend playing kickball with some neighborhood friends. There was an empty lot where houses hadn't been built yet. And another child from the community rode his bike by and started yelling a racial slur at one of my friends that was playing kickball with us. And I'd never heard the term before. And that upset me. So I went home upset, asking my parents, what does this mean? What is this? What's that word? I've never heard it. And so they started explaining to me about, racial issues, that type of thing. I was only maybe first grade. And so I immediately felt for my friend because he was clearly distraught. And so that always stuck with me. Olney was not a very diverse community. It was a very white community. So those types of interactions were pointed whenever they were, whenever you saw them, and that's really continued throughout my life. I remember a handful of years ago during a job interview, the hiring manager made it a point to say, this is how much you can make when you're successful in this position, and then if other members on our team struggle, what would your thoughts be about some of this, profit or revenue that you're bringing in be dispersed amongst your teammates? And I thought, well, that makes sense. this is a team setting, where one succeeds, we all succeed. And it just kind of wrecked he's like, well, wouldn't you want to make all of this money just for yourself? And I thought, well, if they're struggling, we might as well help them, right? So, I mean, it's, the Democratic Party being the party of inclusion, of acceptance, of assisting, your fellow brothers and sisters. That's just always spoken true to me. So
how would that play out on the county board? What would that mean, being a Democrat on the Sangamon County Board?
Well, right now it's 83% of the board is Republican. So you've got 29 members and only 5 Democrats. A lot of what the public knows about the county board is all decided in the Republican caucus room. It's the predetermined, answers. It's the scripted, open meetings, and so. There needs to be more transparency on that board, and so I think it'd be in the county's favor to have more Democrats being willing, like I said, to ask those questions on the record whenever there's something brought up, because otherwise it's a very consolidated description of the meeting minutes that are public or available for public consumption.
So could you describe that a little more? What would a scripted open meeting be? How would that play out?
Well, say, for instance, in this past month's meeting when there were the 3 votes for the zoning for solar projects being proposed in the county, any discussion on those outside of the 2 guest speakers that came, there was no other information made. So if someone would have asked how many potential jobs, what type of tax revenue would these companies be bringing into the community, none of that was discussed, in the open forum. And so, if it is just something limited like that both parties know, hey, this particular project will bring in, 150 jobs over the next 5 years, at least, be willing to have that open conversation, so that way, if someone goes on the website and looks at the meeting minutes, they can see, what was discussed, as opposed to motion to vote, motion passes at XYZ margin.
Good, thanks.
Okay. You mentioned a couple topics in your opening statement. If you were elected, what would be your top priorities, and how would you go about addressing them?
I think one of my top would be the opioid crisis that we're facing. There is the opioid task force, which is a great first start, and saw the news release earlier this year. I've not seen any numbers since, but there were 51 deaths prevented thanks to the opioid task force, with the Narcan being available for emergency personnel. But over the last 2 years, there have been nearly 4,000 deaths in Illinois. I'd like to see additional funding, additional attention put forth by maybe the Department of Public Health. I wouldn't oppose opening a discussion with Macon County, since they're in the process of moving forward with a groundbreaking for their treatment and rehabilitation center. We could build a relationship with them because, like I said, Illinois as a community is struggling with that, and so I'd like to see more of a focus here.
When you say more funding, where would you find the money?
Well, that's an excellent question. I am honored that the county, it's admirable that the county has continued to maintain a balanced budget. But when you see that there are, the online budget it shows you what the overall dollar amount is, but it doesn't show you what that dollar is being spent on. That's another example of how I think some more transparency from the county would be would be a good move. You see that there was, if I remember the numbers correctly, I believe it was just under $9 million for 2018 for the Department of Public Health, but it doesn't say what that is actually going for. Maybe a little bit more of a breakdown wouldn't be a bad idea. So we can say, hey, these projects are working, this isn't. Why don't we move it to something a little more local?
Okay. You also, during your opening statement, mentioned economic development.
Mm-hmm.
That is an area that the county board has kind of led the charge in recently to help create the Economic Development Corporation. Did you support this effort?
I did. I think it's always important to do whatever you can to try and build the local economy, bring in business, because you want this to be a community not only where you want to stay, but I've got a 6-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and while it's nice to have a buffer from grandma and grandpa every now and then, whenever my kids grow up, I'm going to want them close. And if Springfield is a good place that they enjoyed growing up in, where there's opportunities, definitely want them to stay.
What do you see, you brought it up in your intro, what would you like to see happen here when it comes to economic development?
Well, that's a tough question. There are, you've got plenty of restaurants, plenty of stores, but you also see a lot of them leaving, and so I think maybe getting to the crux of what is driving these businesses to leave or to close. If it's something that the community can assist in, something that the county government or city government can assist in, it would be wise to have those discussions. Obviously, if it's a corporate-wide issue, then it's nothing that Sangamon County is going to be able to step in and individually save Toys R Us. But my boys were very sad whenever that store closed up.
As were many children
Mm-hmm.
in this area. Are there any types of technological efficiencies you'd like to see the county implement?
With the growing awareness and accessibility of social media, probably a social media presence would be wise. An opportunity for outreach there. Going back to the opioid crisis, the task force website, it does list a lot of good information, a lot of good resources, but it's you've got there's a hyperlink and then a list of resources, a list of places where you can contact. Some more engagement, I think, just on the overall website would be beneficial.
We started to talk a little bit about budgeting there, and we more and more hear about local government struggling with financial matters. So how would you as a county board ensure the county is run in a fiscally efficient manner?
I don't see any reason why the county board cannot look at the budget on a line by line plan, seeing exactly what amount of money is being spent in which department on which project, looking at timeliness of projects, be it roads or sidewalks or, school funding, that type of thing. I mean, really look at it, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, because you can always find a better way to spend certain dollars, I'm sure.
A lot of the county's money comes in through taxes, of course. Would you plan to promote any changes to the existing tax structure for the county?
From what I've heard from folks out walking precincts, is they're all of the belief that their taxes are sufficiently high, and they're not really seeing a tangible return on that county investment. And so I think there would be, I don't think anybody's going to love paying taxes, but I think there might be more of an appreciation for what they're paying if they know exactly what departments and programs are available to them from what they're being taxed on.
I did just want to clarify, they're specifically talking about the county portion of their taxes, their property taxes, or their property taxes in whole?
The way I understand it, it's just taxes in whole.
Okay.
I don't typically ask them what their individual tax brackets are, that kind of thing, but just, they say, we're paying all these taxes, what's in it for me? And so being able to show them something in response to that would be good.
Got it. Okay. What about what infrastructure needs do you see that need to be addressed in the county?
Well, I can't tell you exactly what road it was, but my company vehicle suffered a couple flat tires from some roadway. Again, not saying all of the county roads are bad, but items like that, we want to make sure that Springfield and Sangamon County is not only, economically attractive, but also physically attractive for, enticing for companies to come and expand here, because we're competing with the Peorias, the Bloomingtons, the Champagnes for business growth and expansion, and we want to make sure that we're at the top of the list.
Another role of the county board is to hear zoning cases sometimes. How would you approach that in terms of how would you go about making decisions, either for a project in your district or a project not in your district?
I would want to hear, I'd want to hear from all the neighbors, like for instance, the solar expansion or the solar projects that were voted on this month. We were lucky enough at the board to hear from local neighbors saying that they were in favor or opposed to the project, where it was going to be set up, and what their concerns were. I think it would be wise for every county board member to reach out to those communities, reach out to those neighborhoods, and actually go out and ask them what are your thoughts. We're looking, or this has been proposed in your neighborhood or nearby. Tell us your thoughts. Tell us your concerns. Why do you like it? Why do you oppose it? Where would be a better fit, or why is this the right fit? You've got to have the community's involvement. You've got to have the neighborhood's opinion on it.
Right. Usually, though, when neighbors come to the county board, they're more likely to be opposing something as opposed to saying, yes, I want this. How do you strike the balance between, like what a staff recommends and what neighbors are saying?
I think it's a matter of understanding their concern, but also being able to provide them with what the benefits of that of what that project is going to be. There were negotiations on the solar projects from distances between property lines, from 50 to, I think they finally settled on 250 feet with some landscape barricades, that kind of thing, to kind of beautify the edge of the property to, make some accommodations for the neighbors.
Since you brought up the solar projects, are those ones you support?
Those are ones I support. Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you like about them?
I think we have to look at every avenue of renewable energy. I'm excited that there's actually 3 more coming up to be discussed here in October. We're in an age where there's been word of production or production being capped off at mines, at coal mines, and so we need to be planning and being proactive rather than behind the 8 ball and struggling to be able to provide power for the counties.
Okay.
So there's also on the ballot this fall is a sales tax for schools.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not a county board member issue,
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts about that?
I support the tax. I do. I would have a hard time having someone convince to me that there's dollar limit that we need to set on what we can spend on education, and what we can spend on the safety and supply for our schools. There's I believe it's just at $10 million that 186 is going to be receiving, and then part of my district is in Pleasant Plains, where there's over $800,000, and that's from talking with other parents in the district, it's welcomed influxes of cash, but those teachers and parents will tell you that there's a list of what still needs to be done with those schools, and I don't agree with teachers or having to dip into their own pockets to be able to provide supplies and security for kids in schools.
The other, I think, noteworthy referendum on the November ballot is whether or not the county should absorb Capital Township.
Mm-hmm.
There's also going to be an effort, it's our understanding, by the city to put a similar referendum in the spring ballot, but that Capital Township should consolidate with the city. Do you support consolidation? If so, with which entity?
That's something that's come up whenever I've been talking with voters, and I tell them it's a big decision. It has the has the potential to impact thousands of residents, but as a husband and father with two young kids, any financial decision I like to review with my wife before making any decision that's going to have an impact on our family. To my knowledge, I've not seen a published cost-benefit analysis on whether the county or city absorbing Capital Township. And so I would actually want to see if it's financially feasible for one or the other, and who's going to benefit the most from any type of merger like that.
What part of county government would receive more attention if you were elected to this office?
I'd like to see more attention to social services, to public health, to those that have been close to me growing up. And unfortunately, whenever you see the state budget, those are typically the first ones that are on the chopping block, and I don't think it's right. I don't think that's fair. We need to be lifting each other up, not taking away programs that are beneficial to our community.
Okay. Is there another issue that you are passionate about addressing as a county board member that we haven't asked you?
We've touched on the ones that are real near and dear to me. Just again, anything that I'm going to be able to do on the county board to make life better for Sangamon County residents is something that I'm going to do my best at. I work in a customer service field, so I'm usually talking to someone when they've had some type of tragedy or big issue in their life, and so I'm going to have an open door policy. All my contact information will be made public, and I wouldn't turn down a phone call or conversation with anybody if they had an issue they wanted to bring up.
Are there any other ways you would work if elected to get information out to your constituents, go beyond publishing your information?
Mm-hmm. I don't think it would be a bad idea to have, be it there's a handful of restaurants in the district, maybe once a month meetings with them. There's the Mellow Cream and there's the Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know how excited people would be about a Saturday morning sit down with their county board member, but I would always welcome open discussions like that with them.
Anything else?
I'm good.
All right, well, we thank you for meeting with us today, John, and we invite you to give a brief closing statement as to why voters in this district should elect you to the county board.
Sure. Well, again, thank you for having me. Like I said, it's exciting as a first-time candidate to be out here doing this kind of thing. What I've shared with constituents is that elections are important. I don't think it's any stretch when I say that this election is carrying more importance than usual. The issues at the state and national level are well known and well covered, but it's just as important that we give as much attention to the issues that we're facing here at home. So I'm asking anyone in the 27th district to lend me your support, and I'd be honored if you would elect me as your county board member so we can work together to make real progress for Sangamon County.